And we have Lee Spiller from, Lee, tell us where you're from.
I'm from the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, Texas, in Austin.
Excellent. And he is our mental health expert. And Monica Leal Cline is with us today as well from It Takes a Family. Hey, Monica, say hello.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. We're so excited to have you guys. And Christin Bentley was going to join us today, but she has a family emergency she needs to take care of. And so we're going to go ahead and get started without her and keep her in our prayers. But today is the first edition of the Roundtable, and I'm so excited to have you guys and your expertise. And we'll go ahead and get started. And what I want to do is just focus initially on what is going on in education in Texas. And if there's anything specific that you think is exciting enough to talk about, to let people know about, and then we'll talk about what we think about those issues and how maybe Texas Education 911 priorities can help in that regard.
Wow, there's so much to say, Melissa.
There is a lot to say.
There's so much to say. You know, I'm a SHAC member of my school district. I'm also a community member, and I don't know if people know that about their SHACs, and maybe we need to even give have you, because you're a SHAC expert, give a very short description of what a SHAC is. But community members and parents, or actually the SHAC is created for parents to have their values, you know, represented in their school district, in the teaching and the health curriculum, mental health, things like that. So parents for sure have to make up the majority of the SHAC of their district, but community members can be on it too. So I'm a community member because my kids are graduated and out of the home. But what is so shocking to me is the SHAC is really, well, number one, parents are the sole authority over their children. Not only is it a God-given right, but in our Constitution as well, is that we have the right, we've been given the right, we're born with the right to lead the education and the moral upbringing of our children. It's kind of like, duh, you know, like, of course, you know, you're the mom and the dad. Like, do we even have to, I feel stupid even having to say it because that's the truth. But, you know, many years ago, and maybe Melissa, you know this, we created a SHAC group, you know, in our law, it's 28.004. And so every district has a SHAC, and it's so that parents can input into the health curriculum, health programs, mental health, recess, things like that. I mean, and health is like health textbooks, mental health, you know, programs, things, all of those. Sex education is a big part of that too. And so that's to ensure that parents are actually giving input and that their values are represented in their school district that they're a part of. And what's amazing is how we as parents and community members on our SHAC, and we're seeing this all over Texas, is how the school districts are undermining or literally just ignoring the SHAC. Because now, as we have rallied together to get parents to be involved in their local SHACs, they're actually putting their foot down and saying, we want to look at these curriculum, or we don't like that curriculum. We don't like this. We don't like that. We want to change this. We want to work with you. And these are not parents who are being unreasonable. They're just like, this isn't, you know, we don't want our children learning about transgender, you know, identity. We don't want them exploring that with you in the school district. We're going to talk about those kind of social issues at home. We don't want you teaching our kids sex education. We're going to do that at home, or whatever it may be. And, you know, there's more to it than just those two examples. And what I'm seeing in my district is that as soon as we started asking questions, and I'm telling you, we're a really professional SHAC. There's no one on our SHAC that's, you know, unreasonable.
You don't have crazy parents on your SHAC? Aren't we all crazy parents?
Mean, you know, you know, there are some crazy parents, but they're not necessarily the ones who are standing up for parent rights, to be honest.
Right.
But what, you know, we're just speaking truth. We're just asking questions. And we see this all over the nation. Just asking a question triggers a school district into calling us terrorists, into saying, our local school paper has attacked the parents and the conservatives in our community because we're simply asking questions or saying, we don't really want this in our schools. It's insane how we've been attacked. We have one parent in particular who's been attacked the most because she's been the most vocal. And I was telling my husband this weekend, and I can say her name because she's very out there. She now has a Moms for Liberty group in our town called Tara Petch. And I told my husband this week, I was like, Tara is really a sweet lady and she loves her kids. She's really nice. And I'm like, that woman has the thickest skin, the scaleless. She's like scales. She's like an armor because she does this work. And she is attacked literally in our small town of Fredericksburg, Texas. The school paper, the city paper, our Fredericksburg paper has attacked her. People who call themselves Christians have attacked her. I mean, it's just like insane how they've attacked this mom for being as vocal as she is. And she will still go to the school and still bring presents to her teachers and still volunteer and still say good morning. And I don't know how she does it other than the grace of God. And she's a pretty neat lady.
Absolutely.
But my whole point about this is just seeing how not only are parent rights being undermined, our authority as parents is being undermined by the school districts, but even when we have a law in place that we can thing like a SHAC, the School Health Advisory Council, where parents, that is the forum, a formal legal forum that parents have to give input, to make recommendations to the school board. That is being undermined by the school districts. They are either ignoring them. I mean, that's really the main thing that they're doing, because the law doesn't have a consequence for a district to ignore the parents or to ignore the SHAC. They're just ignoring the SHAC. They're just patting our heads like, oh, look, we gave you a presentation. Aren't you happy? And that needs to change. And I know that in the Texas Ed 911 priorities, legislative priorities, we're addressing that. We want teeth to our laws. We want to know that our parents are being represented and heard, not just heard, but that we are influencing our districts. It's not enough to just be heard, because we can all talk all day long and nothing will happen. We want action. We want our family values respected. And that doesn't mean that I have the right to impose my beliefs on your children. It means you, the school district, individual teachers, superintendents, whoever, do not have the right. Government programs like mental health programs do not have the right to impose their beliefs on my children.
And you know what's interesting that you mentioned that. I've got a letter here that a parent sent to me. It is from Lindale ISD superintendent. And here's a sentence out of that. And Mrs. So-and-so, I won't reveal her name, I encourage you to remember your role as a parent. Please allow the teachers and administrators to take care of curriculum and instruction issues, and you, the parent, should support the school. That to me is the perfect sentence for how screwed up our schools are. Here is the superintendent telling a parent, and she's asking about a survey her child received. And he is basically ignoring her, not allowing her to have a voice, and is literally telling her, you don't have a role here in the school. You need to step back and let us do our job. And these type of attitudes are coming from an entire state system. And this is not isolated. I'd say what is isolated is the rare superintendent who understands that this statement is wrong. Most superintendent, most administrators, they have been taught and indoctrinated to believe that parents don't matter. And that is what this legislative session, for me at least, is about reestablishing the parent as the primary person in a child's life, no matter where they're at, whether they're at school, whether they're at home, whether they're at the movies. Parents are primary, and the schools need to remember that. And one thing I've noticed, we've had a lot of really good bills been filed, but nothing has yet been filed related to an ombudsman or an enforcement, but I am talking to some people. It is coming. But the other thing that hasn't been addressed is how Chapter 26 in the Texas Education Code, which is where parents' role is effectively defined in education, it says that parents are partners with the educators. That needs to change. And we have been talking to legislators about it. I believe they understand it, but I don't know that they fully understand the power of that change, because I read this sentence and this sentence reads like the Texas Education Code reads.
That's right.
And that's the problem. And I'm sure, Lee, you see it everywhere, don't you?
Well, yes. And what you just described is not a partnership anyway. You know, a partnership where one party can act unilaterally to harm another it's like an abusive marriage. That's what that's like. But you know, the surveys, the questionnaires, they're rampant right now. And parents often don't understand that what your kid says can get them hurt, you hurt. You know, there's a story out of Park County, Colorado this morning about a 16-year-old girl that was having a bad day. She decided to go talk to the counselor. Next thing you know, she's in a psych hospital. Parents never notified, parental consent not gotten. And now not only was their daughter incarcerated against her will, but they're getting stuck with the bill.
Oh my gosh. And so, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. Come on, Lee, that's Colorado. That would never happen in Texas.
I wish that was the case. We actually had a screening case, and it's been over a decade now, but the parents consented to a screening. Everything should have been fine. And instead, the screening team decided that the family needed to admit their child to a psychiatric hospital, and they wanted to get a second opinion. 30 to 45 days later, Child Protective Services shows up at school, says, take your daughter to the psych hospital. Dad says, I can't. Mom has the car. And they said, so you just lost your daughter. And it took us months to get that girl home. And not before she was restrained 26 times, not before she was cycled through about 13 different drugs, many of them concurrently. And that's parental rights? I don't think so. Right. We're talking about
that's ridiculous.
Yeah. If it was such an emergency, why wait 30 to 45 days to force that family to hospitalize their child? Right.
And that's again, I'm the parent. And so to force a parent to hospitalize a child, that is beyond extreme. Even
that is beyond extreme.
Yeah. And
you know, I think
for those people. Oh no, you go ahead, Monica.
No, I finished that because I was kind of sort of going to change the subject tiny in a tiny way. Go ahead.
Okay. And so what I just want people who are listening to understand is we cannot put our heads in the sand, and we cannot say this is not happening in my school. And so we've really got to start asking questions and not waiting until our child is in a mental institution, not waiting until the school's not letting us have access to our child, not waiting until we find out that our child has been exposed to this laundry list of things, because these are not isolated incidences. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this roundtable and we're doing this live podcast, is so that people understand the magnitude of the problem, whether it is a parent sitting at home, a grandparent sitting at home, someone sitting down in Austin writing legislation. We want to make sure that they understand that these are massive issues and they're not small. Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, and I got to finish that thought if you don't mind. And they're not isolated, right? In the fall of 2019, a media outlet out of San Antonio looked at the numbers of children that had been put under mental health detention via local school districts over a couple of year period, and it was hundreds of them. Right, this is by no means isolated. And the poster child for that, you know, the reporting started with a 7-year-old autistic boy led out of school by cops in handcuffs to be taken to a psychiatric hospital.
Wow. Yeah. And no, that's unacceptable. Yeah. And it's definitely unacceptable in Texas. Like,
that's
parents
correct.
should be furious.
Absolutely. And it just hearing stories like that, you know, triggers the mama bear in me. I'm like, rah, you know, ready to get over there, like hands off my kids and hands off other people's kids. You know, what I was going to say earlier when we talked about being partners, it's been years now that I've been speaking out against that. That parents are not partners of anything. You know, the children are under the authority of the child, not under the authority of the government or the state or the district. They're under the authority of the parent. And I think that there many decades ago, and especially, you know, I saw it in my own culture, in the Hispanic culture, we want to trust the expert, whether it's the expert in education or the expert in health. There was a time where you actually could trust that expert because those experts respected the family and they respected that the parents were the authority over their children. But that no longer exists. Our government has turned into believing that the children belong to the state. And that's what we're seeing in these teachers. And someone in the comments mentioned, and now, we've got great comments. Keep commenting, guys. We won't be able to get to all your comments, but keep commenting. It's great conversation. But someone in the chat just mentioned, now I kind of lost my train of thought of what she said, but really that whole belief system that we're partners in believing that the government is now replacing the parent. And that's really, I know what it was, is that the training. There is, how do we stop this training, this indoctrination of the teachers, the superintendents? And her point, I believe, if I read it correctly, and it made me think about this, is that the National School Counselors Association and the organizations that are over that teach and train the superintendents, all these professional organizations that are administrators at the schools and teachers at the schools, they're all being indoctrinated with this belief that the children actually belong to them.
Yes.
That they're the heroes, that they're the ones that need to mold the future generation. And that has been creeping into the schools, well, really from the beginning of time, because really the whole point of having public education was to do that, was to instill a socialist ideology. And it just kind of slowly started to change over the years until we see what we see today. And that is not the reality. And so unfortunately, if you were to go to the National Association for School Counselors, you're going to see that their standards is that you must be supporting and affirming trans identity, and all these other social change issues that we're facing today. These organizations are being told and training all of these professional people, or the people who are working in our schools, that this is the expectation, and they are being brainwashed. And why would they go along with it? Because money comes along with it. So now there's more funding for mental health. So, hey, school counselor, you're going to make more money if you get this other certification, and if you do this. Hey, superintendent, you're going to get more money if you bring in these different programs. This is the expectation. Hey, commissioner of education, all of this is tied to money and power. And so now they don't care about the health or the mental health of the child. They don't care about the health and the strength of the family. They care about power and money now. And so the only reason they care about our children is because they want to mold our children to become the future of a Marxist and socialist community or country. And, and we're trying so hard in this legislative session to turn those things around.
Yeah,
we are.
Even if you take the political ideologies out of it, just on a family basis, you're still talking about coming in between a child and their parents' values, their church, their beliefs as far as treatment or anything else. It's like we keep getting into a bunch of issues, because people have their own values, but at root, it doesn't matter what your values are. They are instilling their values.
Right. And that is, something that made me think you were talking about gender ideology. And I just want to mention the TASB letter that came out. I believe it was last week or the week before. And it was basically telling all the school districts, because over 1,200 school districts across Texas, they all are members of TASB and they get advice from TASB. And TASB came out and basically said, you have to buy into this gender ideology. You have to let boys who want to use a girl's bathroom do so. And they, gave all these lists, and they basically lied in the letter. They misquoted law. They did not fully represent the law. They did not represent parents' rights. And so we have some really brave state representatives that I just want to mention, because they wrote a letter to the Attorney General and asked for his opinion on this issue so that he would step up and basically say what the law actually says rather than the lies that TASB is feeding to the school districts. And so we really are very excited about that, because as a parent, even as hundreds of parents, we can't reach out and ask the Attorney General to write a letter and an opinion on something, but these legislators can. And so these state representatives, Tony Tinderholt, Brian Slayton, Brian Harrison, and Mark DeRazio, all signed this letter and are asking the Attorney General to come out with a statement. And we absolutely need that, because this is an example of how our school districts are being lied to and manipulated by these big organizations, whether it be TASB or some other large organization that is trying to influence our schools. Our school board members are volunteers. They're parents or community members and even our administration and our teachers, I believe they want to do good things for our children. But when you receive a letter like this from who's supposed to be advising you on the law, and they're lying and misrepresenting and twisting the law to push an ideology, that is not what we want. That's not what the superintendents want. That's not what the teachers want. That's not what the school board members want. But they're not being given much of a choice. And so one of the things that Texas Education 911 is asking for, which is a very simple solution, is that we believe the school board should have their own attorney, and it should not be the same attorney that the school district staff has. And that would result in at least conversation rather than a one-sided agenda coming from TASB. It would force this other lawyer to step up and say, that's not okay. This is not sound legal advice. And
yes,
here's my opinion on the law.
That's right. One of the great things about Texas Ed 911 is that it's a group. Not everybody has to take the same position on everything. My group doesn't take a position about gender issues. We deal with abuse in the mental health system, and gay people are just as likely as anybody else to be abused. But the thing with the TASB letter that really struck me is it's not, for me, it's not a gender issue. It's a matter of, you've got any contentious social issue, and they're teaching, they're directing schools on how to get around the rights of parents and the values of the community.
That's exactly right. And that's what's so alarming. And so anyway, the other thing I thought that maybe we could talk about is the Prosper ISD school board president got arrested this last week for indecency with a child. And this is not a small instant, it's not a small situation, and it's not the first of what's been happening in Prosper ISD. And Monica, why do you think this type of stuff is happening? Why do we have these leaders in our communities that we're finding out are behaving in this way, where they're supposed to be in a situation where they're protecting children? Is it just random? Is it happening for a reason?
What's interesting is that when we look at the data of how we've been bringing more and more sexually charged topics and programs into the schools, we've also seen an increase in teacher or administrators who are abusing kids. You're seeing it more and more every year. The more we compromise what we bring into the school and the teachings that are being brought in, the more we're seeing even the teachers changing, and the teachers are, I don't know. It just, at the same time, it's also just sin. What kind of person would want to do that to a child? Is just beyond me. But what we're seeing here is that there's also a problem within the school system. And we've seen this in the church as well. And we've seen that probably in a lot of organizations that want to retain their power and their money. And I'm not speaking out against the church. These are individual people who are sinning and committing crimes against children. But the school, and I don't know that we have a legislative priority to address this, they push these things under the rug a lot. There are many substitutes, many teachers, many staff who we have heard are quietly redistributed to other districts after they committed some kind of sexual harassment or something against a student in their school. So instead of being reported to the police, instead of being fired, instead of losing their certificate and inability to ever work at a school again, they're redistributed. And that just shows, and so I'm really against having districts that have their own police departments, because those police are working for the district to protect the district.
And actually, it's a problem whether you
protect the children.
Yep.
No, and it's a problem whether you are dealing with a school district who has their own police department. So, for example, Center ISD, they have their own police department. So if you're a parent listening, how do you know if your school district has their own police department? Well, the cars or the vehicles they're driving will say Center ISD Police. Or if you are in, I'm in Longview. Spring Hill ISD does not have their own police department. Longview ISD, which is the town, provides the police. So when you see the police driving by, it says Longview Police Department. That's how you tell. But whether you have your own police department or whether you just have what they call a school resource officer, in both situations, they ultimately report to the superintendent, who is not a law enforcement officer and has the incentive to push things under the rug. And so one of the things that Texas Ed 911 is asking legislators for is that whether it's the school resource officer or the school police department, we want them reporting to the chief of police of the city police department. They have no business reporting to the superintendent.
Well, and that confines it to criminal matters, because to do it otherwise is social policing. What are we doing having the police social issues? Julie C., one of the commenters, brought up the this whole community schools model, and the schools become everything, and how it's the embodiment of what John Dewey and the progressive education movement were doing. And I agree with that. And unfortunately, it even spills over into school policing.
It does. And that's the one thing that we have to really step back and recognize, because everything has been covered up with this globalization thought, or this idea that parents are not in charge of the children, the state is in charge of the children. And that makes an absolutely huge difference on how people behave. We're coming to the end of our half hour, and I'm so excited. This has been awesome. First of all, by the time you see me again, I'm going to have an awesome light or something, so I look at least half as good as Monica looks on the screen.
Amen.
Sitting here in his shadow, but other than that, this was awesome. And I so appreciate you guys. And I know, Lee, we spent a lot of time on issues that were not, things that you have, that you take a position on, but I appreciate your patience. It won't always be that way. But I do want to give a little bit of instructions to the people who are actually following us. If you have a prayer that you want to submit to Texas Education 911, I would like you to do so. We're going to start a prayer contest, and it will end on March 1st. And so send the prayers to texaseducation911@gmail.com. And if you have a story that you want us to highlight on here, if you would like to share more of what's going on in your school district, please reach out. Send the same place, texaseducation911@gmail.com. texaseducation911@gmail.com. If you're not already an ally with Texas Education 911, go to the website, texaseducation911.com, and sign up as an ally, an individual ally or an organizational ally. We love our allies, and the more you spread the word about Texas Education 911, the louder the voice of the parents becomes. And it makes it to the point that our legislators have to listen. They want to listen. They just don't necessarily understand the magnitude of the problem. And they definitely do not understand how big or how large the group of parents and community members are that are upset about what's happening in our schools. We need to be a really loud voice. So thank you guys for being on. And I can't wait to be on again next week. And I have a surprise coming later this week. So y'all stay tuned. We'll have something coming out on Thursday or Friday. You guys have a great night or great day. It's not nighttime, but it looks like nighttime at my house.
I also want to thank everyone who joined the chat and the live feed. We've got all these amazing comments. There are people that I recognize. Julie, I know her from Oklahoma. I've spoken at her community. So thanks for being on.
Yes.
And then we see Tracy Haynes on here, and Greg is on here. Michelle, she and I chat on Facebook and maybe Instagram as well. So thank you guys, because I know that all of you are doing hard work in your own communities, and that's what we need to keep doing. But this is so important what Melissa has done here to get our eyes and back on legislation as well, because that's how we're going to change it. We need to not only help change our culture, but we need to change it through legislation and make sure that parents have those rights to continue having their God-given authority over their own children.
Amen.
Yeah, and one thing one that makes me kind of just giggle here a little bit, the power of us all moving and working together. This monster group of parents and community members across the state. And someone sent me a text last week and said, "Hey, Melissa, this representative was online talking about how enforcement will just never work in public schools." And there were all of these comments. You need to learn about Texas Ed 911. You need to go talk to the parents of Texas, just like over and over and over again. And I have an appointment set up with them this week. And so, it's just, the power of our collective voice is absolutely incredible. So everybody out there, just keep doing what you're doing, and keep standing up and putting on your really thick Kevlar like Tara Petch, and keep that smile on your face. And as you walk into the school, you be the light. Don't let the naysayers make you cower into a corner. Just know that you are on the right side of this, and ultimately we will prevail. We just don't know exactly how it's going to look come the end of the session, but we are very confident that it will be in the right direction.
That's right. Courage is contagious. That's right.
I love that.
It's awesome. A great way to say it.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. And
bye. Thank you, Melissa. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.